I train hard, I lift heavy, and I recover with intention. That combination matters more than most people realize, especially for women as we get older. I'm not talking about light exercise or just staying active. I'm talking about serious, progressive strength training at 70. Because this is the season when it matters most. Let me start with how I fuel because that shapes everything. I eat a very low carbohydrate, ketogenic style diet. My focus is on high quality protein, controlled fat intake, and very minimal carbohydrates with some targeted carbs around training when the timing makes sense. This works well for me metabolically. My energy is stable, my recovery is predictable, my inflammation is low, and with this way of fueling, I can train consistently week after week without the crash and burn cycle that often derails some people. But I want to be clear about something. This is how I train. This is how I fuel. It is not the only way to fuel. Some women do really well with more carbohydrates, especially around their training. Others feel better with a more moderate approach. The key for all of us is metabolic context. Things like insulin sensitivity, your body composition, inflammation, and overall health. All these factor in. So the goal is not to follow a trend. The goal is to understand what your body is actually responding to and build from there. Some things don't change, however, regardless of approach. And one of the things is the importance of protein. As we age, we become less responsive to protein intake. And this is called anabolic resistance, which means that to get the same muscle building signal, we have to give the body more protein than we used to need. We have to be more intentional, not less. Adequate daily protein is non-negotiable if you want to maintain or build muscle after 60. And don't let anybody tell you that after 60 you can't build muscle. That's not true. But protein is not optional. This is biology. Now let's talk about strength training. Strength is not just about muscle. When you talk about strength, it's about having independence. It's about resilience. It's about protecting yourself against decline. We must age. But after 60, the risk is not of only losing strength. It is losing the capacity to recover from stress, from injury, from illness. That capacity is what keeps us living at full function rather than managing limitation. And who wants that? Strength training directly addresses that. Nothing replaces it. When I train, I focus on compound lifts. I do squats, deadlifts, presses, including the bench press, and I train with relatively low repetitions and controlled intensity. I am not chasing fatigue. I'm not trying to feel wrecked at the end of a session. I am training my nervous system, preserving power, and maintaining technical precision. Those are the targets, and I think they're good targets for everyone. For women in this season of life, that framing matters. You don't need endless high rep circuits designed to make you feel tired. You need intentional loading, good form, and the discipline to show up consistently. That's it. Recovery then becomes just as important as the training itself, maybe even more so. Because if you are not recovering, you're not adapting. You are just accumulating stress. What is recovery though? Recovery includes things like sleep, nutrition, and managing your overall stress load. We know that stress will happen, but we have to manage. If your sleep is fragmented, your training will suffer because growth hormone and muscle repair happen during sleep. So if your nutrition is inadequate, your recovery will be incomplete. And if your life stress is chronically high, your body is going to interpret your training as another threat that it has to manage rather than a stimulus for growth. And that is real physiology. It's not a motivational concept. You have to manage your recovery with intentionality. Mobility is another piece that tends to get ignored until it becomes a problem. Mobility is not being flexible for its own sake. Mobility is about your joint integrity, your movement quality, and reducing injury risk over time. We need to incorporate regular mobility work, which is what I do, especially around my hips, ankles, and thoracic spine, because those are regions that limit safe and effective lifting when they tighten up. And believe me, they will tighten up if I do not address them. Now, here is the sequence we want to avoid, and that's why I do mobility training. You lose mobility, your movement compensates. Compensation patterns create uneven loading, and uneven loading creates injury. And then the injury interrupts everything, so we have to stay ahead of it. When you look at the full picture, then, it is not just training. It is how you fuel. It is how you recover. It is how you move. And it is how consistently you show up, not just this week, but across months and even years. You do not need to train the way you did at 30. You probably couldn't if you tried, but you do need to train. And you need to do it with intention. Now, for those of you who are navigating something more complex, whether that is metabolic dysfunction, some chronic inflammation, or even a cancer diagnosis, this becomes even more critical. You need to train. You need to build muscle. Your terrain is shaped by your inputs. Strength, nutrition, recovery, and mobility are not separate conversations. They are one integrated system. And when you begin to respect that system, your body responds accordingly. I have seen it in my own body, and I see it in the women I work with. This is not theory. This is what the body does when you give it what it needs.